As George Lucas unfolded his Star Wars saga, starting first with episodes 4 through 6 and then jumping back to episodes 1 through 3, he incrementally revealed that the overarching story was actually about the rise, fall, and redemption of Anakin Skywalker. And even as that wasn't apparent back in 1977 and was likely far from fully formed in the writer-director's mind, now that he's completed his 6 films, it's clear that both trilogies are meant to be seen as chapters in Anakin's life. And whether you love the whole of the franchise or hate the prequel trilogy more than Anakin hates sand, the fact remains, it's all canon.
Yippee!
And a key part of that canon are those that have transformed into the Force, most notably Obi-Wan Kenobi, Yoda, and Anakin Skywalker. And I suppose we can throw Qui-Gon Jinn in there as well. Furthermore, we've witnessed that at his death, Anakin's appearance reverted to his own just prior to his turn to the dark side. Love it or hate it, Sebastian Shaw is no longer canonically Anakin Skywalker after death. And so, since the sequel trilogy was announced, we've all been left to wonder, will we see Anakin Skywalker's smiling blue face again? Well, I for one firmly believe that Force Ghost Anakin should return to the Star Wars universe, and here's why. Uniting the galaxy. Whether you ally yourself with prequel trilogy fans or prequel trilogy protesters, there's no denying that for some time there's been a civil war of sorts in the Star Wars fan galaxy, which makes one potential upside to bringing Force Ghost Hayden into the sequel trilogy, bridging that divide between those two opposing sides, if only just a little. Prequel lovers would appreciate seeing both their beloved trilogies joined all the more, and prequel haters just may end up seeing a key element of those films in a more attractive light, something that Rogue One: A Star Wars Story has already given us a peek at. The polished sheen of the prequels, for example, may have kept some from connecting with Genevieve O'Reilly's Mon Mothma or Jimmy Smith's Bail Organa, making their appearances in a much grubbier, worn-looking Rogue One a revelation. And so it could be with Hayden Christensen's Anakin Skywalker as well. No longer directed by a man who, by his own admission, wasn't much of a director of actors nor scripter of excellent dialogue.
I manage action and cut and faster and more intense.
He would instead be directed by someone who's not only written fantastic dialogue in films like Brick, The Brothers Bloom, and Looper, but also pulled some of the best performances out of the actors on Breaking Bad. Hayden's performance aside, there are also a number of narrative reasons to bring back Force Ghost Anakin. Powerful reunions. There's no denying that Ben and Anakin's and Luke and Anakin's final scenes were iconic and emotional. And even if Episode 8 doesn't show us their very next interactions, just seeing those pairs back on screen together with their weighty histories in mind would be incredibly powerful. These brothers had so little time to connect in Episode 4, and this father and son had so little time to converse in Episode 6, and it could be extremely moving to see how those relationships have developed since then. The tragedy of Darth Vader.
But now by adding episodes 1, 2, and 3, people begin to see the tragedy of Darth Vader as what it was originally intended to be.
Personally, in the original trilogy, it wasn't until Return of the Jedi that I felt that tragedy myself. But since then, it really has been expanded upon in very poignant ways, most recently in Rogue One with Anakin in the bacta tank, as well as Star Wars Rebels with Ahsoka slashing Vader's mask. Actually, seeing and hearing Anakin reminded me who was beneath that menacing black armor, and really how lonely his existence had become. And an appearance from Force Ghost Anakin could continue to reinforce that tragedy. The Chosen One. Though the mystery of how Anakin would bring balance to the Force in his lifetime was answered, we were left to wonder, what about now? The Force has awakened, yes, but certainly seemed to have gotten up on the unbalanced side of the bed, with Snoke, Kylo and his Knights of Ren slaughtering the Jedi, and Luke removing himself from that fight. And having Ghost Anakin return could be a fantastic way to answer that question. Once you start down that path. More than anything, the biggest reason that Force Ghost Anakin must appear in Star Wars Episodes 8 and or 9 is because the sequel trilogy has already started down that path. Those behind these films could have, if they wanted, decided that The Phantom Menace through Return of the Jedi presented Anakin's story in its entirety. They could have, had they so desired, closed the book on that character and never mentioned again Force Ghosts, giving Luke, say, one line of dialogue to explain their disappearance. And that would have been it. But they didn't. In The Force Awakens, they rang the Anakin bell. They jumped into the Chosen One waters and opened a new chapter in that character's life. Firstly, by having Obi-Wan and Yoda call out to Rey in her vision, they told us that Force Ghosts are still around. And if that's the case, then there's no logical reason to leave Anakin out. Secondly, and even more leading, was this.
Show me again, grandfather, the
Kylo prayed to his grandfather, calling out to be shown a part of the Force that Anakin had turned from before death. So not only was that invocation a clear sign that Anakin could be connected with, but with one of his few living relatives misconstruing his legacy, we were also shown why he'd want to. And in light of the recent, very painful death of Carrie Fisher and the quick-to-follow announcement from Lucasfilm that they have no plans to digitally recreate her, unless they choose to recast, we can no longer expect, in Episode 9, for Kylo's only living parent to step in and show him the heir of his beliefs. So, what better than to have his grandfather step in? The familial connection would remain, and he'd be speaking to a grandson who's been obsessing over him for years, without ever truly knowing and understanding him. And this is why I believe that Force Ghost Anakin must return to the Star Wars universe. But this is also just my opinion, and I would love to hear yours. Should Force Ghost Anakin return to the Star Wars universe? Why? Why not? Also, what do you think are the actual odds that Hayden Christensen will get cast again in a Star Wars film? Definitely comment below and let me know. And also, I must give a very special thank you to all my patrons over on patreon.com. You guys are the ones that are actually affording me the time to make these more in-depth reviews and video essays, and I just wanted to thank you so much for that. And to the rest of you guys, even if you can't support me over on patreon.com, please do subscribe. I'm going to continue to review films and television on this channel, and I would love for you to stay up to date on all of those things. But for now, I'm Chris Hartwell. This is The Heartbeat. Thank you for joining me.